So glad to have Karen this morning. Karen, you still don't have a camera?
My computer is refurbished. It never had one, so
Oh, you can add one for about $15.
it's never been something I cared about, so I don't know.
All right, but you can see us?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So I particularly wanted you to be able to see the slides this morning because I'm going to talk about a topic that you had asked me about. So it's kind of for you. There it
I
goes.
I had so much problems with the trying to make that difficult pattern thing.
I put some slides together to talk about cross stitch because Karen was talking about mending a hole in her dress or what.
I put the pattern on the jeans. I mean, I put the pattern on the dress, and then I started trying to sew it so that I could just rip the pattern away. And of course, now the pattern's starting to crumble, and I still can't really tell what's what.
Okay, so that's what this show is about. So let's try it and see if this helps. So the first thing with any mending, we want to reinforce this place. We want to stop it from getting any worse. We want to make it disappear. Or one other alternative that what she's done here is to make it more visible and decorate it. So you can see she's got a patch underneath and has sewn around the edges so that it won't get any worse. If you can see this running stitch and other reinforcement here. And then she's embroidered around it. It's like I planned it this way, you know. Here's a hole in a sweater and she's going around it and she's going to make this become part of this design. And so the first thing you do is you reinforce it. And you can see she's pinned the reinforcement fabric to it. You can see what it would look like on the back as well as on the front. But then you have this to sew together, fasten together, and decorate it as you wish. So this is water-soluble interfacing. And I ordered some so I can send you a piece of it because if you're mending, you only need a small piece anyway. Um, but what you can do is draw a design. You can draw any design you want to. You put the interfacing on top. You have to baste around it or something because you can't iron this on. It's water soluble. If you try to iron it, you'll shrink it. Um, so anyway, you stitch your design and then you just wash it and it goes away.
But how do
So
you?
instead of having a piece of paper that's crumbling as you described, you've got a piece of fabric which will eventually wash away and you just baste around it to keep it in place while you're working your design. And then once you're finished, it goes away. Another way to do cross stitch is you use needlepoint canvas to guide your X's. And then once you've got the design together, you just pull it apart. Take each one of these strings one by one and unravel it and pull them out. And yeah, it's a bit of a pain, but it works very well. You just have to make sure that when you make your X's, you don't pierce these white threads. And then you can pull them out right from underneath your design. And now there's a new kind of interfacing that's called soluble canvas. And you can pin or baste this canvas to the cloth like we did before with those jeans I showed you. And you stitch your design and you wash the garment and you just take this canvas right out from underneath it. But what's neat about this is it has the little X's. It's built like needlepoint canvas so that you can guide your X's. But then you don't have to pull the threads out, you just wash it.
Well, that would be
Yeah,
so
we
much
wash it by
easier.
hand. You have to soak it and convince it. It kind of turns into a gel, and then you have to flush it away. Run it, put it under running water, and make it go away.
Yeah, that would definitely be so much easier if it had the accents on it. But it
Right,
didn't.
right.
Uh,
So, and the other thing you have to watch about any canvas that you use is how many X's to the inch. So 14 count means there are 14 little X's to the inch. And it goes 16, 14, 12, 10, like that. I'm not sure this valuable canvas comes in too many sizes, so you may be somewhat constrained. But when you look at your pattern, measure the pattern across and see how many X's per inch, because if the pattern you're looking at is 10 to the inch, and this is 14 to the inch, in other words, your design's going to be smaller. See your teddy bear? So this guy, if this is 2 inches across at 10, it's going to be smaller at 14. See what I'm saying?
It's
So
still
here's an example. So here's a 14 count. That's what we were looking at before. There is an 18 count. You won't want to work on 18 pound canvas. It's much too small. You can see that the X's are smaller. Okay, so if that's 1 inch, you've got 14 stitches here, you've got 11 stitches here, you've got 18 stitches here. So the X's are smaller and your teddy bear got smaller. If you want it bigger, you could use a bigger canvas, but usually the canvas is whatever the canvas is, and you just have to make sure you understand that going in.
I don't know. Is anyone good at drawing? Because it's like, oh my gosh, I just
No, you can count it, and that's what we're going to learn today. You just count the X's, and you can lay it out. This is a tutorial. I mentioned we were going to have a guest speaker, so our guest speaker is virtual. His name is Phil Pepe, and he loves hobbies, and he does all kinds of crafty things, including cross stitch. So I thought it was fun. I liked his demonstration. So here we go. Phil is going to teach us how to do cross stitch.
Hey guys, and this time we're going to start learning how to cross stitch. This is something I learned how to do when I was 11 or 12 years old. My mom taught me how to do it, and I have really enjoyed it ever since. And I've done some really cool, like I've done a Gryffindor crest and a few Doctor Who cross stitches and some really cool stuff. But we're going to start learning with this ladybug. It's really simple. And so today I'm going to start off by teaching you some basic things that you need to know when you first start to cross stitch, to learn to cross stitch. And if I can get this open, everything we need to do this ladybug is in this little packet here. And so if you buy a kit, it's going to come with everything you need. So we have some instructions over here, and we have our pattern. And then we have our materials. And these are some variation, or this is a bonus actually. Another pattern that you can do after you've done this one. We're going to keep the pattern because we're going to need that. What we have here is our fabric, or what we'll call Ada fabric. You can cross stitch on all different types of fabric, but this is the most common. And the first thing you're going to want to do after you get your needle threaded and everything is find the center point. And the way you do that is fold it in half and then fold it in half again. And you find your center point right there. And so since this has already been folded pretty much in half, we kind of already have the center point. So that'll help us out a little bit when we get to that. You also have in here a cross stitch needle, which when you look at this needle compared to others, what you'll notice is that it has a bigger eye on it. It makes it easier to get the thread through there. And then the tip of it is usually dull because you don't really need a sharp tip because you have holes in your cloth. Okay, and then you have the thread, or like I just called it, the floss. This is embroidery floss. So we have two colors for this pattern, red and black. So the first thing you want to do is separate out your colors. So the first thing you're going to want to know how to do is the best way to thread your needle. And there are different ways you can do it. And I encourage you to look them up and find out which way works best for you. But I'm going to show you the way that has worked best for me. And since the majority of this pattern is red, and you see that X there, that's your middle point. You can look at these blue arrows. They point to the middle of the pattern. That's what we want when I was talking about folding your cloth in half and folding it again. That's your middle point. So that's where you'll usually start when you're doing your cross stitch. Once you get a little more advanced, you can actually start counting over and down and say starting like right here or something. But when you're first starting, you want to start right in the middle. When you look at this embroidery floss, you'll notice, if I can get it to focus on it, that it's multiple strands. And a basic cross stitch is done with 2 strands. So a lot of times you'll pull out 2 of these strands, pull them out like that. However, the way this works best for me that I've found is I pull out 1 strand like this. And usually mine, when I cut it myself, it's a little bit longer than what we have here. So this is going to go a little bit faster than what I usually do, or we're going to use it up a little bit faster. So then I take both ends and I put them together. I get them together like this, right here. So then I grab that end and I pull it until I get down to the other end where we'll have a loop like that. So then what we want to do is get this loop as small as we can. It's kind of hard to see, and I'll get it a little bit smaller than that, but we're going to feed that loop through our needle, and hopefully I can do this through the camera. I missed it. Okay, let's see. So we're going to feed this through the eye of the needle like that. And then we're going to pull it through. And then take your needle and push it. You're not pushing it through anything, but put it through the loop like that. And then grab your thread down here, needle, and pull. And what that does is it gives you a little knot right there. And so now you have 2 strands of thread on your needle. And the advantage of this is if you put 2 strands of thread through here and just kind of fold it over, then it can easily come off your needle at any time. Like when you just pull too hard or something, you do it this way, it's not coming off your needle. Now, as far as starting, there are a couple different ways you can start, with a waist knot or without a waist knot, or other things like that. But the way I like to start is not with a knot. We've got our midpoint, which is right about here. So that's the middle of our pattern. We're going to look back here, and we're going to start where this X is, and we're going to see it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have 2 blacks and 2 reds. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start 1 down from that. So we've got our middle one. We're going to go 1 stitch down. 1, 2, and we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches across. Okay. So if this is our middle right here, we're going to start 1 down from there. What I like to do is stick we're going to say this is the front, the back is of course on the other side. I like to stick my needle in where I want to start and kind of wiggle it around a little bit to make the hole there a little bit bigger so I can easily see it. So then I'll go on the other side, find that hole I just made. Looks like that's it. And it looks like I was off by 1. So that hole I just made right there. There we go. Okay. Pull the thread around to that side and we'll pull it through. And this is starting our first stitch. And now across stitches, you're going to go from bottom left to top right and keep doing that down the row of all your stitches. And then you're going to come back and go from the bottom right to the top left. So we're going to start our first stitch like that, bottom left to top right. And I like to turn my work over and you'll see you'll have a little tail. You want to leave a little bit of a tail here, about like that, and take this thread here and catch it with your thumb. Get it kind of together, and then you want to go right over that to the hole right below where you came out. And it's going to catch that tail, and then when we flip our work back over, you're going to see you came out right where you need to be. So you went bottom left to top right, and then you came back out just under that. So now we're going to go bottom left to top right again. This is stitch number 2. We're going to flip our work over, push the pattern back there, and then we want this to catch that tail again. So what's happening here is these stitches are going to hold this floss here in place, so we don't have to worry about it coming loose. So we've got 8 stitches, and we'll go ahead and finish up the rest of these real quick. And normally when I get about 3 stitches down, I'll cut off this tail about right there, and so it'll make it nice and neat on the back. I don't have a pair of scissors here with me, so I'm not going to cut it off right now, but we'll finish these up, and then when we get to the other side, we will continue on. Now that we've gone down and we've completed 8 half stitches, this is just bottom left to top right is a half stitch because that's half of a full cross stitch. So we finished all 8 down the row. We're going to go back and finish the stitches. So now we're going from bottom right to top left. It's exactly the same thing that we were doing before. We're just going backwards. So as we finish these, you'll see that makes an X. That is a complete cross stitch. So then this next one, there's another complete cross stitch. And we'll keep doing this until we have all 8 completed. Now, when you get almost finished, you have to kind of make a decision. If we're going up to this next row next, which was 4 across, skip 2, and then do 2 more, we're going to want to start right here on the bottom left, just like we did before. If we come out bottom and go across to finish this stitch, we won't be able to start there. We'll have to start up here on the top. What I like to do here is instead of coming out on the bottom and going back across, I like to come out across here and go down. So what I'll do is I'll flip it over. Instead of crossing back over, I'll come out here. I'll go sideways, pull it out, and then I'll go back in down here. So instead of bottom right to top left, I'm going top left to bottom right. And now I can go back up here, and I'm ready to start the next row. So that's how you do a basic cross stitch. Next time, we'll discuss get a little more in depth about this and finish up a little bit more of this ladybug. Today, I want to do just a quick little video talking about making decisions in your cross stitching and planning ahead. So when we left off last time, we finished this first row on this ladybug cross stitch. So as we move on to the next row up, if you remember, we had 4 red stitches, 2 black stitches, and then 2 red stitches. If you look ahead to the next row, you have 3 red stitches, 4 black stitches, and 1 red stitch. When I'm cross stitching, I don't mind skipping 2 stitches, but I don't like jumping over 4 stitches. Some people may be completely fine leaving that space there, but I don't like it. So when I'm planning ahead, when I'm moving to that next row, I'm going to go ahead and make the decision to go 4 over, skip 2, do the next 2, and then instead of going back, I'm going to go ahead and go up 1, do that stitch, and go up 1 more and do those 2 stitches, and then go back and go back through and end there and start on the next row. So that's what I'm going to do right now, and I'm going to show that to you guys, exactly what I'm talking about. So we're going to go ahead and do our 4 stitches over. And this is something that you want to think about with any cross stitch that you're doing, because you're going to have these rows where you might not be able to skip over, 5 stitches, 10 stitches or something, but you have another row just below it that you can go ahead and go over and do those stitches and then come back. So we've done 4 right there. We're going to skip over 2. So on the back, instead of going straight up, we're going to skip over 1 and 2. So instead of going in here like we've been doing, we're going to go over 1 and then 2, pull it through. You see it's diagonal there. And we're going to come out on this side, and now you can see where we came out. There's a space here for 1 stitch, 2 stitch. So we're just going to continue on and do these last 2 in this row. Okay, and then end up here. So we finish that row, and we have that 1 stitch above this. So when we flip our work over, instead of going back like we normally would right here, we're going to go down this way, and we're going to come out above that stitch. And so now we come back down, and this is a good example of making a decision on the fly. I just realized that if I come down here and I want to go up to this next row, that I'm going to have to skip up. I'm coming down here. I'm going to have to skip up either to here, because there are 2, or I'm going to have to skip all the way up to here. I don't want to do that. So I can either go back and I can come out here and then go up and across, or I can do this, go back and tag these upper 2 up here when I come through on this top row. So let's look back at the pattern, and I hope this is making sense for you guys. And we can see this stitch that we're in the process of now right here, and then the 2 above it. If I wait, I can come across here, go to the end, and then go down and get those 2. I think that's what I'm going to do. So at first I was planning on getting that one and these 2 in this pass, but I think we're going to wait on those 2. So that being the decision I have now made, I will stay where I am, and I will finish up that half. I'll go back in, and then I will finish this stitch and go back down and finish up that bottom row. So as you can see, nothing in, well, I'm not going to say nothing. A lot of things in cross stitching are not 100% you have to do it this way. The 100% stuff that you want to remember is that you start bottom left to top right, or top right to bottom left. That's your first half of your stitch, and then your other half goes from bottom right to top left, or top left to bottom right. That's what you want to remember when doing a basic cross stitch. As far as the order you do them in, that can be completely up to you. If you want to do 1 stitch at a time, that's completely up to you. I do not recommend it, but you can do that if you want to. So we come back to the end of this row. We have one stitch left. If you remember last time, we didn't go down and go back across because we want to start in that spot right there. So what we're going to do again is we're going to go ahead and go across on the back so that we come out on top left. And then we're going to go down to bottom right. That way we can start our next row on bottom left, just like that. So I hope that made sense to you guys about reading your patterns and planning ahead so that you don't have to skip 4 on that next row. You go ahead and knock that stitch out, or you knock out a few more stitches on this side of it, and then you can just go through these rows, come through on the top, and finish it a whole lot easier. So be sure to spend more time looking at your pattern than you think you need to. You don't have to look at it for hours and hours and hours. And in this case, this is a very simple pattern. So you don't have to spend a lot of time looking at it, but pay attention to your pattern. Make sure you count it correctly. Count it 2 or 3 times, then go to your work and count it 2 or 3 times before doing your stitching. You can go back and correct stitches, but it's much easier to do it right the first time and to plan it out. Hey guys, finally, it's part 3 of this Cross Stitch 101 series that I started quite some time ago. So off camera, I finished up the rest of the red in this pattern. You can see there. So in this video, we're going to start the second color, which is the black. Now, all the stitches that we do in this video are going to be done the exact same way that we did the red stitches. And actually this part up here with the black is going to be quite simple because it's going to be exactly the same as this. Now the part that might get a little confusing are going to be these spots. So that's where we're going to start, and I'm going to show you how you can do all of these without doing this and cutting the thread, and then doing this one and cutting the thread. And you can do them all pretty much with the same thread. Plus, you notice there's one stitch there and one stitch there. So I'm going to show you how to take care of all that. So the thread has been run through a couple stitches, so I can get my scissors and just cut that off. And go ahead and take this thread off of the needle, and I'm going to cut it off pretty close to where it's running through those stitches. I'll put my scissors right there, so there's not going to be much of a tail sticking out, as you can see. Now these longer tails, that's where I started, and then the shorter tails are where I end. So anyway, let's get this thread off of here, and we'll thread up a new piece. And we'll separate out just like we've been doing. Separate out one thread. All the rest of those off, put that to the side. And then we'll take one end, get to that end, grab the other end, get these even. This is just a recap of how we did this in the first video. We want to get both of these threads as even as we can. And don't be afraid to take your time and get this right. Don't be afraid to take your time with any of this. Patience is a big factor in cross stitching. So once we get those pretty much even, we're going to grab both of those in that hand. We're going to pull it until we find the center of the thread. Okay, and I switch my hands a lot. Once you practice this and get good at it, you might be able to do it a lot quicker than I can. I twist it a little bit just to get that. You get that loop, and then the end of your needle, this is going to be a little bit harder to see on here, I think, because it's not focusing the way that it should. But we're going to stick that little loop through the needle, pull the loop through while holding the needle, and then stick the needle back through this loop. Grab the needle in this hand and pull the thread, and it locks it in just like that. So we have 2 strands on now from 1 strand. So this is not going to last as long as if I put 2 strands actually on here, but it's a lot easier to thread, and the needle can just hang there. It's not going to fall off. So we're going to start down here in these bottom ones, and since we have 1 stitch here in this square and 1 stitch here in this square, and we got 4 across. Usually I'll start where there's the most that I can lock it down with. So I'll probably start here and do these 4 across, jump over and do this one, jump back, finish this here, and then jump over and do the same thing over here but backwards. So like I said in the second video, I want to kind of plan this out in my head, the order I want to go before I start. So then I kind of know what I'm going to do. So I want to start right here. So I'm just going to stick my needle in through the front so I know where to bring it through on the back. It just makes it easier for me. So I know I want the needle to come through this hole right here. So I'll pull the rest. Well, let's go ahead and pull this through. I've got my eye on it through that hole right there. And that's right. So I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to go ahead and start this stitch. And one person made the comment that you don't have to keep flipping it back and forth. You don't. But personally for me, I find it easier because I can see what I'm doing. I can see it just a little bit better if I flip it back and forth. So I get one stitch down to lock it in. And I flip it back over. Then I'm going to do the same thing here. Go over to the next half of that stitch. Go through. And I like to flip it over. So I flip it over. Push it through. I'll do one more and then I'll cut that tail off. So this is the third one. And then stitch that through. So then I can just drop my needle and it's not going to fall off. It's one thing I really like about threading my needles this way, is that I don't have to worry. And these tails too, I'll leave it just a little bit longer. Chop that off. So I can get another stitch or so on that. I'll pull that tight. And go and do this last stitch right here. Right through there. Okay, so then I'm going to have to go over 2 stitches. I've got one there, and then put this last one in. So on the back, I'm here on the top. I'm going to have to go down 1 and over 2 so that I'll come out right here and can do this last stitch. And so that's basically what you do when you have big gaps like this. You'll go down 1, over 2, and you'll just jump. So when I pull that through, you'll see on the back it's a little bit longer of a jump there, and two stitches across really isn't much. If you're jumping like 10 stitches across, that might be a lot, but 2, 3, 4 stitches, that's fine. So up here, when we jump between these two, we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches. So 6 stitches still isn't, it's a little bit bigger jump, but it works fine. So we'll flip it back over. We'll finish this stitch here. And here is that outside stitch done. So now we'll jump back across 2. So we'll go back down 1, over 2. And we should come out right on the bottom, right there, right where we need to be. So we'll go back. And now this is part of the planning ahead again. I can go ahead and finish this row and then do the top and then do the bottom, or since I'm right here, I can go ahead and take care of them now, because if I finish that stitch and go down like I'm going to the next stitch, I'm going to come out in the correct space to go ahead and do these bottom 2. So I'm going to go ahead and jump down here and do those. So you see, I had that stitch, I came out to finish this one, But instead, I just went ahead and went down. So now I'll flip it back over and go up to this next stitch. Do that. Flip it over. Like I said, you don't have to flip it, but I like to flip it. And I think I actually came out a little bit wrong on that stitch, but this is another thing about cross stitch. It's not all perfect. So I'm just going to leave it and I'm going to go on. Because usually, even if it's not exactly perfect, people are not going to notice. And in reality, nothing is really perfect. So it makes it your own. It gives it some character. And there we go. Now I could go up 1 and finish this row. But I'm going to jump up 2. No, I take that back. I'm going to actually jump up 3 so that I come out up here and finish these top 2. So when I flip it over, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, all the way up here. It's going to come out on the top. And I'm going to finish these top 2 real quick. That's half of them. And there we go. So now all we have to do is finish these 3, and then we can jump over to this side and basically do the same thing. So we go back down 1 to come out on the bottom, right there where we need to be. I apologize if y'all hear my intestines going or anything. Okay, so now this spot is finished. So there you go. That spot's finished, and that one stitch over here is finished. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Y'all can watch me stitch this last bit here and kind of see how I do that. I'm going to jump over 2. So we'll do the same thing we did earlier. Down 1, over 2 to come out in the wrong place. So in this case, I want to come out on the top. So I'm not going to go down 1. I'm just going to go over 2. And I'm going to come out on the top here where I want to be. And I'm just going to speed this part up and y'all can watch me finish this spot. Okay, pause for a second. This time when I come out on this stitch, it comes out on the top. So it's kind of the opposite of this one, where this one came out on the bottom. I did the bottom row first. This one's going to come out on the top. So I'm going to do the top row first. And then I'll come back and do the bottom. And we'll be done with these two. And I'm starting to get a little low on thread, but I think I've got enough to finish this spot out. Because when you have just a few stitches like this, that's one thing I don't want to do, is run out of the thread before I get finished. So I'm going to avoid that jump this time because I want to conserve as much as I can. So I'm going to just jump back down to this middle row, do 1, do I want to do that? See, this is a game time decision. I don't want to jump back up to that one. I'm going to actually jump over because this only uses a half a stitch worth, and go back and do this bottom row. So now I've only got 4 stitches left. And see, this is what I meant last time by kind of planning it out in your head, making decisions on the fly. Okay, that's right. To try to make things easier and to conserve the amount of thread that you're using, especially when you start getting low. So this time I'm gonna finish that one. I'm going to jump up 1, and I went up too far, so I'm gonna go right there. I'm gonna end up going back to finish this one, and then I'm going to jump over one to finish the last one. If I can see where this is supposed to go through. Right there. When it starts to get cluttered on the back, it gets a little difficult to see where to put your needle. So there we go. So I will fasten this off on the back, and I will finish these last two spots. We'll just jump across the same way we did with these on the back, where we jumped 2 stitches. We'll just be jumping 6 stitches instead. So exact same thing. I'll do one spot, jump across, do the other spots. The top part will be, like I said, fairly simple. It'll just rows of stitching, one at a time, until you get to the very top, where I would do this row and go down, and then on the way back I would catch these 2, and then I would finish some more, and then I would catch these 2, these 4, and these 2, come back down, catch these 2, and then finish it. So that's going to be it to finish the black. I'm going to do most of that off camera, and then I will come back in the next video and we will talk about back stitching, which is what these legs are. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to do the back stitches on this little ladybug. So I finished up the rest of the black from the last time, and now we're going to do the legs and the 2 antennae using back stitching. So if you look at your chart, whichever one you're using, it'll actually tell you on here, give you sort of instructions how to do it. Blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. It can be a little confusing, I think. Basically, all we're doing is just making lines with our thread. So when you do a back stitch, it'll also let you know most of the time whether you need to use 1 or 2 strands. Most back stitches, if it doesn't say otherwise, is just 1 strand. I'm going to pull out 1 strand, just like we do with all the other stitches, except instead of finding the middle and turning this into 2 strands, we're going to leave it as 1, and we're just going to do this the old-fashioned stick it through the needle way. If you can't get it to go through, you can take the end and just put it in your mouth. It makes it a little bit pointier. And then try to thread it through the needle. It can be, I think I got it. There we go. So we want to pull it through a couple inches. And then just fold it down. So then down here, we have 1 strand on there. You might want to plan where you're going to start, because you're going to want to put, I'll show you in a second, but you're going to want to go ahead and run your line under some existing stitches, and then in this case you might come out here and go down, and then you'll come out way down here and go back, and then you'll have to come out way down here and go there, and then jump somewhere else. I don't really want to do that. I would rather start down here somewhere and work my way back up, and then I can jump up here and start kind of in the middle. Jumping around, it can be just weird with back stitches. It's not quite as easy as jumping around, just jumping across a row. So I'm going to start down here on the bottom right at this black square here, and what I'm going to do is actually start not on this back stitch, but I'm going to start right here, so I can go down, then I'll come up and go back, then I can go back down and do this one. Let me show you. Right here is where I'm going to come up. 1 to the right, right there, 1 to the right of the bottom of that black. So when I push my needle through, that shows me where I'm going to come up. So I'm just going to wiggle it and make that hole a little bit easier to see. So what I'm going to start off doing is running my thread up under a few stitches here, just like that. I can pull the rest of this through, pull my needle through, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail sticking up, about like that. So you see I've still got a little tail sticking up past where I ran my needle through. that's where I'm going to try to secure this thread, since I'm not actually going to be stitching back over it. So I'm going to go back through that hole, and be careful here. Don't pull your thread tight and pull it all the way through. You've got this tail, so once you get your stitching started, you can go back and pull this tail and pull it tight. So you don't have to worry about pulling it too tight right now. So now we're down here where we were going to start. And we look at this stitch, and it's kind of hard to see the grid on here the way the light is, but it's 1, 2, 3 stitches down is this leg, straight down. 1, 2, 3 stitches down. Put the needle through. Same thing here, we haven't really stitched a lot yet, so we don't want to pull it too tight. So we've got that first part of the back stitch. Look back at your pattern. We're going to go down and over 1. So this is 1 block diagonal. But we want to come up from the back side, so we actually want to come up right here. So if we were to look at it from the back, we want to go down 1, and we'll actually go to the left. So we look at it from the back, down 1, over to the left. Push your needle through. Pull your thread. And I do like to watch it to make sure I'm not pulling it too tight. You can tighten it a little bit more there. Okay, and then needle back through there. That's that part of the leg. And then we're going to go up from the back and come up right here. So if we flip it back over, we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, and come out right at the top there. Pull that tight. Now we're at the point you can pull it because we've got enough stitches in here. You can go back to this tail, you can pull that first one tight. So then we're going to go up and over to the left because that's the last part of that leg. Up and over 1. So now that we planned this, so we're ending right against the body there for that leg, we can go to the back and just jump all the way up here and come out. We could come out right there and do the same thing we just did. And actually I am, because this down here we had 3 parts to the leg. Up here we have 4. So if we come out right against the body, we can go over, we can skip that 1, go straight down, do the same thing we did down here, jump back up, finish that one. So we're going to do that same thing. So let's make a note of where this is. This is the next, right at the bottom of that top red stitch. So it's going to come out right there. So if you want to, you can put your needle in there and wiggle it around a little bit. Try to make that hole a little bit bigger. So you can look at it from behind. It might make that hole a little easier to find. It might not. But we got it right. Right there. Bottom of the top one. So we're going to pull our thread through. We're going to go up and over 1. Up 1, over 1. So that's 1 diagonal stitch there. Pull the thread through. Now, like I said, we're going to skip this 1 over. We're going to come out there and we're going to go all the way down. Now this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches down and 1 over. So we're going to skip over 1. We're not going to stitch this one. Oh, and my thread came out. This is one problem that you have with doing threading this way instead of threading the way I like to do it. Is your thread, it's easy, a lot easier for your thread to come off. And then you'll get your end is all like that. You see? So I'm going to wet my fingers and just kind of straighten it back out. Pull it down as close as I can to my fingers so I've got just the tip of it, and then it makes it a little bit easier to get it through. So we'll pull that back through and try this again. So we're going to go over 1. We're going to try not to pull our thread out of our needle that time. There we go. So then we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. And that is going to get the long portion of that leg. So we still have 1 more at the bottom. It's just over 1. So we want to go over here, go over and come out on the other end of that back stitch, and then go through the bottom of that leg. We come out up here, so we flip it over, or I like to flip it over. I like to see what's going on the back. I'm going to come out on the top, go over one, and we're back behind. So that's two legs on here now. If we look at the back, the way it looks with the back stitching, you're going to have some longer strands, usually, especially if you do it like I do, where you just jump to the next one. And that's okay. This is only one strand. You don't really want to jump when you're doing outside things like this. I personally don't like to jump like from this tip to this tip, because if I wanted to, for some reason or another, if I was making this into a magnet or something and I wanted to trim really close around these legs, I might end up cutting through that thread, and I don't want to do that. So I want to try to jump, make my jumps as close to the body as I can. So we're right there. Our next position is another 3 legs, so I actually want to jump right here and go up and do the same sort of idea I did down here. So I'm here, I want to go up 1, 2, 3, and over 2. So when I flip, this is going to be kind of backwards. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, and to the left 1, 2. And I'll flip it over and check and make sure I got it right. It is. It's right beside, right between those 2 black ones right there. That's where I want to be. And now this stitch is going to be up 3, and then the one at the top is going to be a diagonal over. So let's do that real quick. Pull it through. 1, 2, 3, up. And then this top one is a diagonal over. So I'm going to come out on the other end of this stitch. Pull it through. Go down. Top part of the leg. Come back out down here at the bottom of this stitch. And then this last stitch was straight over. So I'm going to continue jumping around and finish the rest of these legs, and you guys can just watch me in fast motion. So we got the last back stitch in. This is a very simple example of back stitching. Sometimes you'll back stitch around an entire project, you'll back stitch inside the project. It can get quite intensive with back stitching, but that should be a very good, easy example of what you're wanting to accomplish. So once you do your last stitch, you will fasten off the same way. You'll just find a few stitches here. You will run your needle up under them. I usually do at least 3. 3 seems to be a good number. Run your needle up under them like that. Pull your thread through, and then you'll trim your ends and you're ready to go. And that is the end of this project.
So how do we do?
I like how he threads the needle, so
Yeah.
and then it was like, again, I've done the cross stitch, and I never really liked it. So, and I think maybe if I just did like how I used to do the X's at the same time. And I think the way that he does it is probably a little bit easier. So.
It keeps it more even too.
I
So if you do a row of them in that way, do all of the right leaning ones and then go back and do all the left leaning ones. And one of the tricks is to be sure you always do the right leaning ones first and then the left leaning ones. You know, if you alternate, then it looks a lot more bumpy on the finished work.
I don't know. I think it's much easier if you're doing a kit rather than actually repairing something. and it's hard for me to believe they don't even have the X's on the fabric. It's so visually, spatially intensive.
No, it's actually easier than you think, and but that's why they call it counted cross stitch. Is that you have to count on the grid on the chart. When you get a chart for cross stitch, it's marked in that way, so it's not too difficult to
But you,
figure it out.
No, my sister and I, we used to use, we used to get that graph paper, those, with the squares on it. And so, and then we would do the, just, and so I didn't have the patience like my, sister did. But, back in those days, we used to do all this needlework and make stuff for arts and crafts, church fair. But my sister stuck to it. It wasn't my thing, but I tried it.
Yes, and here I just pulled up a pattern so that you could see it, Karen. And you can see how he was counting. 3 green, skip 1, green, white. The white is the background color, so that's the fabric
yeah,
that you're working with.
but then you also have to remember after you're looking at the pattern, then you have to look at the cloth and actually visualize where it is.
Right, but again, if you start in the middle, just like he said, you start in the middle of the pattern and then you just count from there. So this is where you're going to start. As he said, you fold your fabric in 2 pieces. You figure where you want the center of this design, and then you just work out from there. So it's actually easier than you think, but it takes some getting used to. I've done things that are at least this dense. Let's see if I find another one here. Here's
Because
another one.
I'm not really sure how to fold a dress.
No, but you figure where you want the center of the design. So you stick a pin in and where you want the middle of the design to be. And especially if you're working on top of a patch, then clearly the center of the design is going to be the middle of the patch, right? So you just mark the middle and then go from there.
That one looks like the bookmark of the free cross stitch that I was trying to do. But
Yeah, there's lots of different designs. Here's the simple one that's a little elephant. Oh, here's some cute little animals.
the stitches still look too small on that rose.
They still look what?
Small, very small.
Well, the stitches are going to be the size of your canvas. So whatever your guide fabric is, like we talked about in the beginning, if it's 14-point canvas, then this is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's going to be an inch on 14-point canvas from here to here. All right, so you figure this, oops, sorry. This is about a 2-inch design. Yes. All right, so there's about a 2-inch design right there. So you would take the middle of it and say, okay, if this is the middle, then is it going to cover my patch? Well, now I always work from the front and I bring my needle up from the back, but I'm looking at the front when I'm doing it. So, his style is a little bit different. You work out whatever makes sense to you when you're trying to do this. Now, this is a more open pattern, so this would not work so well on patching something, but anything that's sort of dense in the middle, as long as it's going to cover your actual patching, that's what you're looking for. Do you wanted a rose or something?
Yeah, yeah, I really, yeah, a rose would be awesome. A rose or something. I kind of like the idea. I think it will match really well with the blue dress.
Sure. Yeah, let me see if I can find a rose real fast.
That rose that I saw earlier, that was a nice one, but it was, I don't know, maybe it was a bit big.
You saw another rose?
No,
Where
the one
was
that you showed us earlier. Was it this one? Yeah, postcards of love. Was that the one that you had up there?
Postcards of Love? I
Oh,
don't see it yet.
it's right next to the elephant.
Next to the elephant. Oh, okay. Yeah, this rose. Right. Yeah, you could do that. And here where it's open, they're using the background, but you could put a different color in there. You could put a white color in there and fill that in so that it's not open.
But I don't know is that if that's bigger than the whole. I don't want to like work on it forever. I just want to like
Well, you'd measure the hole, and I forget, it's fairly small. So I'm sure this would cover it. Might be a little bit big for it. We might look for something a little smaller. But so again, 14 to the inch is what we're talking about. So you'll find a pattern that is the right size for what you're doing. Here's some roses in this too, and these are filled in enough that it would work well for a patch. Okay, well, I can work with you and we can plan it. Maybe send me a couple of things to work with and we can use another class to plan it. I'm going probably a little too fast.
oh, the hummingbirds, those are pretty too. Footprints.
Yeah, a little bird like this, as long as the body would cover the hole, that would be beautiful. These are more complicated because of the changes of colors.
Oh no, I don't want to do more complicated.
Yeah. So maybe this is the right one?
Yeah, that one, or maybe down at the bottom, like if you scroll back up, there's one that's bluish. I don't know which one's more complicated or less complicated. At the Charts Club member was only, oh, okay, I guess that one's not
What?
very
Oh,
left.
this one?
Yeah, and I don't even like it that much.
Okay, so the one we had before is better. This one.
Yeah, but which one's less complicated?
This one's a little less complicated because there's fewer colors, but you know, it's really not that bad to do the one you like.
Oh, okay.
So one of the differences is here you're going to backstitch around it. That's that dark outline. That's backstitching around it and giving it a little more detailing. But yeah, graph paper's the way to go, Betty. And you and your sister used to chart things up yourselves, lay it
Right.
out your own self. Yeah.
Right.
What about that paper that dissolves? Can you like, is it possible to put the pattern on that? And I could put the pattern on my clothes with the like the sticky paper and like just
I've ordered some. When it comes, I'll see how effectively you can actually draw on it. But because it's washable, they're sometimes kind of delicate. And so drawing on it might not be the best way to do. But we can certainly make some marks that will help you count it. So it's just like working with graph paper. So here's a good example of the graph paper. And when you get a pattern, it tells you the different colors by marking the squares with different symbols. So here where it's an X, this is one color. See, this is your color chart.
yeah,
So here it is, use
the
this.
the free one that I was trying to do, that was the rose. It had some sort of chart thing there with different colors and marking it, but I didn't get it. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know what each of those colors stood for, or like, it doesn't. I don't know. And then I tried to see it on the actual pattern when I printed it and put it on my dress, but then I couldn't tell what any of those things were because they were so small in the printed blocks. mean, with glasses, without glasses. I couldn't tell what they were in the little boxes.
Yeah, well, the first time you deal with a chart like this, there's some learning involved. So, but I'd be glad to help you with it. What it says here on this chart is for this little triangle symbol, wherever the triangle symbol is, like here, that's this triangle symbol. And that's supposed to be DMC 367 Pistachio Green Dark. So DMC is the manufacturer of one of the best of the embroidery flosses, and 367 is the color number. So you're sure that you get exactly the one that she intended. But of course, her intention might be different from yours. So if you don't like her color choices, you can always do something else. But if I were doing this pattern, I would get these uh, threads together, and you can go to some place like Michael's and just pull them out from the display and group them together and see if you like the way they look together. That's number one. So you don't have to open the packages at all. You just lay them out together and see if you like the way they work.
Yeah.
And then you might make a different choice about something, but these are her colors. Jennifer, who put this pattern together, chose these particular colors.
Right.
Okay, I think I understand the quandary that you're in. So I'll put together. We'll do this next week together. But if you would send me the dimensions for that hole that you're covering up. Just measure the widest width on it, vertically and horizontally, and then we can plan it together, and we'll do it with the group next week. Okay?
Okay. All right. Thanks much.
Sure. Good. So Betty, I'll see you on Friday.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Have a good rest of the day.
Late
Okay.
morning, and yeah, thank you very much for coming, everybody. Take care.
All right.
Bye, Karen.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.